Okay, well, again, thank you all for coming. We're going to let you ask some questions of our two senators here in a little bit. We'll go from there. But before we do, we'd like to start this as we start every meeting, and that's with a prayer. If I can get Carol to come and say the prayer, and we'll start with a prayer to God.
Thank you. Would you stand with me, please? Father, we recognize you as our Creator and Almighty God. You promised to never leave us or forsake us. We are so grateful for that. You are still the one in control of our world, even though at times it doesn't seem that way. That makes us depend on you even more. We need you and are so sorry that our nation turned its back on you in many areas over the years. We cry out to you for your intervention in fighting evil in our nation and across the world. What we need is Jesus. Teach us, Holy Spirit, to be more Christ-like in our attitude, actions, and desires. May your peace be with us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you. While you're still standing, I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Now you can sit. We're going to start right off this evening with introducing the two speakers we have, and I'm very pleased to introduce them. These are two of our senators, and I've known them for a long time. They're both friends, and I appreciate them coming and talking to us. They're also not afraid to answer questions, so ask them the questions you have in their mind, and they'll try to give you the best answers they can, okay? With that, we'll start, and let me introduce to you Ruth Johnson, Senator Ruth Johnson, and Senator Kevin Daley, who's welcome. Good, please, thank you. And Ruth, you want to start?
Sure. Ladies first. Thank you. My name is Ruth Johnson, and I have the honor of serving in the Senate with Kevin. I used to be your Secretary of State. I sure wish I sure was. Still the Secretary of State. Oh, we all. Yeah. I found it interesting that Kevin and I have both been deemed by one organization, which is run by one person, as continuing threats to democracy. Yeah, and I cannot thank you enough for being here, for caring, for being really public advocates for our republic, for what our country stands for. Because if we didn't have you, we have these organized efforts to try to discredit us for doing things that are just absolutely right. Without citizen activism, we would be no place. It's hard enough. I've never served in the minority before, and I first ran because I don't like government in 1988 and been doing it ever since. I was your past Secretary of State, and so I was declared, as well as Kevin, as continuing threat to democracy because I wrote an op-ed criticizing the then current Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, for methodically stripping integrity out of our elections. I did. I wrote that. And oh boy, is it true. You're in trouble too. But it is citizens that keep us going. It's what you stand for. It's what you work for, what you give up your time for that means so much to us while we're up there fighting, and we fight hard every day. And this is just kind of a fun thing that I wrote up today. And probably a lot of you could even be, as Kevin said, also considered a continuous threat to democracy when it's this kind of democracy. Number 10, suggest that dead people should not be registered to vote. How many of you think that? Well, you're bad then, all bad, yeah. Say that you think the current Secretary of State is a threat to democracy. agree with 80%, and that includes 58% Democrats, 80% of the public believes you should have photo ID to vote. How many of you think you should have photo ID? Yes. All right, you're on the bad list too. Do some math and then keep asking in committee, which I serve. I chaired elections, and now I'm the minority vice chair. But I just kept asking, why do we have 360,000 people registered to vote, more than our population? That's a bad question, evidently. Pass a bill that all absentee ballot drop boxes must be monitored by cameras. And by the way, Kevin voted for all this stuff too. That's why he's on the list too. When the law says all ballots need to be in by 8 p.m. on Election Day, I sued the current Secretary of State because she said it's okay if they're 6 days late, up to 6 days. Number 4, try to pass a federal law so that when you move to another state, you actually get taken off the Michigan qualified voter file. Bad. Maintain that signatures on absentee ballots should really match the signatures on our qualified voter file, as opposed to presuming they're all valid because they sent them in. And number 2 is continue to believe it was a good thing when we had to see a voter in person, a warm body, one time. That's been stripped out. We never have to see that person. It's just plain wrong anyway. And the number 1 thing to getting labeled as an ongoing threat to democracy is to be a past Secretary of State or a good senator that fights the good fight. And I'll just go very quickly here. And I did write an op-ed. It was just fact-filled. I love factoids, you know, instead of emotion. But Benson hurt integrity. She sent unsolicited absentee ballot requests to over 800,000 people that are not qualified to vote in Michigan. 800,000. They're pre-filled out. I called them invitations to vote. She changed the definition that when I left the Secretary of State that said, you must verify the signatures. She told the clerks, well, you don't have to really check them, even if they've surrendered their driver's license to another state. The judge found her in violation. She told the clerks to presume that the absentee voter signatures were genuine and to accept them if there was any redeeming qualities. So she lost in court. That was in my article that she gets after me about. She created an online absentee ballot application that a person doesn't have to sign against Michigan law. The court found her in violation. She didn't take off 177,000 people that I left on the countdown list that should have been done after I left, starting in January, and it maybe takes 2 months. She never took those 177 people off that were supposed to be taken off by law. So she was found in violation. And she tried to allow ballots to be counted, up to 6 days after the election. And I sued her with the past Secretary of State before me, Terry Lynn Land, and we did win. She was found in violation. But I'm not supposed to say those things, you know. Anyway, thank you for sending Kevin. I only have 4 townships in Lapeer, but they're all great townships. And I'm just so thankful that I get a chance to represent part of Lapeer. Kevin?
Thank you, Ruth. And one thing that Ruth, I'm going to comment first on what Ruth talked about, all the things that the Secretary of State has done that were illegal. Well, guess what? If we had the Attorney General's office, we would be able to go after that. We've really made a big mistake in having this dissension in the Republican Party and not sending the right candidate to replace that woman, because that woman is just as evil as the other two. So the trifecta they've got has been pretty hard for us. But I'll just cover a few things, and then I think we can just take questions from you guys, because that's what this is usually the thing to do. But I want to touch base on the solar and wind, the removal of local control on solar and wind, because of my being involved in agriculture the way I have been the whole time I've been in the legislature, chair of the committee up until I wasn't my first term, and I'm not going to be my last term. So because I am the only sitting Republican in the state Senate or the House today that ever served in the minority before. So I was there for Granholm's last 2 years. And so I knew what it was like to serve in the minority. And I liked much better leaving in the coming in the minority than I'm going to like leaving in the minority. Because it really makes a big difference when you can't, and besides that, all the things that we had to do. If you remember what it was like in 2007 and 2008, I went in January 1st of 2009. Those last 2 years of Whitmer, same difference, Granholm. The lost decade, as we called it. The state was in such a mess, and then we got her out of there, and then we brought in Rick Snyder. Whether you liked Rick Snyder or not, Rick Snyder was a good governor, and you could trust him. He was honest and he was sincere. I thought his first 4 years were better than his last 4 years, and we did so many good things that first 4 years that he was there, or 2 years that he was there. No, 4 years he was there. His first 4 years. That just turned right to work's a perfect example. All the changes we had to make to education. You talk to any superintendent in this state, and they will tell you what we did to fix the problems in education when we first came there were the greatest thing that ever happened. And it's all being reversed now. Every darn one of them are being reversed. The spend and spend and spend more, and then if you don't have any more, you just get some more, you spend some more again, and we're going right back in the hole again. They have spent every penny we've got. I just had 2 meetings come in the office today, and these are programs that were started under ARPA funds, federal money. I call it an artificial economy we're dealing with right now, because the federal government has dumped billions and trillions of dollars across this country, billions of dollars in every state. So every state that's got a Democratic governor, at least, has been below on every bit of that, our Democratic legislature. We attempted last term, and we spent too much, but we attempted last term when we still had control of the Senate and the House she was going to try to spend some money, so we were trying to spend only this money on infrastructure, things that were, not social programs, but infrastructure things, fixing roads, fixing bridges, fixing dams. We had trouble with the dams and spending that type of money across the state. And we did our best to do that, and then when they took over, they have created every social program there is. But I started to say there was two people that came in, 2 different groups came in today, programs that were the greatest thing, and they were funded by ARPA, but now they need to fund them, so they need some more appropriations so they can fund these things. Our votes aren't going to make a difference. If the governor and the legislature, the Democrats in the House and the Senate agree to do it, it's going to get funded. And we got another 2.5 years of this with this governor, and then I think we'll be back to the pre-2008 again. I don't know how we can't be. But so what's happened, I started to mention the solar and wind. Of course, we all watched wind happen over the last few years, and the infrastructure that went in, well, it wasn't good enough for solar because in my mind, I used to think wind, I used to tell my wife, well, I'd rather have solar than wind because at least you don't have to look at solar panels up in the air all the time, until I saw what they did over in Shiawassee County with 1,200 acres of that stuff on good farmland. And so you're taking productive farmland out, but so they go and pass a bill that says the locals can't make that determination anymore. Well, I take that back. That's not what, they'll tell you they didn't do that, but they did. Because if the local ordinances don't meet the criteria of the state, then the state can take over. So that's their way of nitpicking around it. And so this could be between 360 and 600,000 acres of productive farmland taken out of production in our state, if it actually happens. And that will just change agriculture as a whole, and it already is changing agriculture because investors are buying land for no reason other than to put it into solar, productive farmland. And agriculture is our number 2 industry in the state. It's going to drive up the price of agriculture. It's going to drive of land. It's going to drive farmers out of business. I had just a few weeks ago, I had a young guy from up by Millington because they're working on a big facility up by Millington. It's getting pretty close. And it was kind of funny because he called the office one day, and I had been dealing with this guy trying to buy some straw, believe it or not, some 6-foot round bales of straw. This guy was from Millington, and I had called texted this guy on Facebook and made a deal to buy these things, and he was delivering them to me. Little did I know he had called the office the day before. I hadn't been there, so I hadn't talked to him. He showed up my driveway, and we got talking, and we started talking a little bit about solar and stuff, and he said, So Daley, he said, "Are you related to the senator?" I said, "Well, I think I am." And then, so he went on to tell me that him and his dad farm together over by Millington. He's got a farm where he lives, a 120-acre farm, and his dad's got more land a little farther away from him. But they are putting the solar all the way around his 120 acres. And he refused to sign up for it. He said, he stood in my driveway and he said, "I will look across my road, standing here looking across in front of your house, and I will see nothing but solar on two other sides." But he said, "The problem is they've got to get a way to get power across my property." So he said a year ago they came to me and they offered me $90,000 for an easement to bury the lines because I didn't sign up for it. And he says I turned them down. What do you think it's at this year? Just under $400,000 they're offering him for that, just to bury those lines across there. So what he had called my office for was to find out if he didn't go along with that, because who wants to pass up $400,000 if it's going to happen anyway? He said, can they take this property away from me with a, what's the word I'm looking for? Eminent domain, which they say it can't happen, but I wouldn't trust it. But that's not in the law. They're not supposed to be able to take it by eminent domain. So I give this young guy a lot of credit because he said, "I'm not giving in." He says, do you think this can be stopped? And I said, well, if we get a new administration, the only reason solar works at all is because it's all this federal money again being dumped in here. It's millions, billions of dollars of federal money going out to create, you guys all understand this because it just doesn't make any sense. We're going to go to green energy. We can't get enough energy already, so our prices are going up. We get brownouts in the summertime, but we're going to use green energy, which is the worst stuff you could possibly use. And DTE just announced that they're going for another pay rate increase this next year. So they can just continue to get all the money they want because it's in the Constitution that they have to be guaranteed a 10% profit. I think it's 10%. Maybe is it 10%, 6%? I don't know. Anyway, so if you look back at the records and they are starting to sell this, I guess it's my understanding the big two, consumers and DTE, are starting to sell the fact that if you want to invest in some good stock, get our stocks because they've never gone down. They continue to go up no matter what happens. You're going to make money off DTE or consumers. So, but it's scarier than heck to me of what's going to happen to our farmland, our productive farmland up in the Saginaw Valley. I represent all of Saginaw Valley, half of Tuscola County, all through there. Prime, I mean, we're talking prime farmland, nothing any better than that. And they are trying to lease that stuff up near the infrastructure. They want to be near power lines to get the power out of there. And it's just scary to me, just scary what it's going to do to our system. Another thing that I just want to touch on, because I did have this question come up to me with it was a concern about, and it was Chuck's here somewhere. Chuck Herpelsheimer's out there, yeah. So Chuck asked me the other day about this, septic permit requirements, that they'd like to do a statewide septic approval thing. And this is not just Democrats, Republicans. Some Republicans want this too. They've been trying to do this for years, and it's always been able to stop it. I hope we can still stop it, but I didn't think a lot of these things that happen would never happen either, and they have. So yeah, it would it would give. First off, it would give Eagle the right to promulgate rules as to what should happen, how these systems should be run. You'd have to get your system inspected every 5 years. There's no fees in the bill currently, so God only knows what Eagle would put in there for a fee for that. It would have to be inspected every 5 years. You would definitely have to inspect it and bring it up to code if it wasn't up to code when you sold it. So it's just, I like to compare the fact I used to represent Bay County, and Bay County, has a high water table. Bay County has trouble up there with their septic fields all the time. And they need a completely different septic code in Bay County than we need in Lapeer County. But they want to do it universal across the state. There's 1.1 million homes depend on septic systems. So just think how much money Eagle can make off us all. That's another grab for dollars from the people out here. So that's a scary thing. Those bills have not been heard yet. They're introduced, but like I said, they've been introduced before. So hopefully they'll be controversial enough that we can stop them again, even with the Democrats in control is what our goal would be. But I think that's, we can talk about all kinds of crazy other things. They've introduced, if you've probably all heard of the Family Paid Leave Act, which we're thinking the governor might got scared of that. Now Family Paid Leave Act would require every employer to pay into a kind of an unemployment type system where the employee and the employer would pay a percentage into a fund, creates a fund, and then that employer would be required to pay an employee to go up to 13 weeks of paid leave to take care of a family member or other issues where they would have to just, with no excuse, there's certain things issued in there. One of them is take care of a family member, parent, or a sick loved one or something. So paid 13 weeks, the employer would have to guarantee them their job back. The money would come out of that fund to pay them their salary. So how do you take any employer, but, most of you know Vidon Plastics here in Lapeer. Don Doobie's an owner of that, and I was talking to Don about it, and he says, I don't know, how could I ever do that? He employs about 200 people, but his people specialize, so he says, if I've got a guy that leaves that is one of my engineers or something that specializes in a certain area, I got to find somebody to come in and fill that spot for 13 weeks, and then I got to get rid of them and bring that guy back? It won't work. And the current bill says up to one employee. So if you got one employee, you would have to do that. How could you do it? It wouldn't work. She is catching a lot of kickback from that from the small businesses across our state. And then we could get into the gun bills and all that stuff. But whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever you want to ask us about, we can talk. Oh, yeah, and I will mention that too while I'm talking, yeah. So this is Eric Nesbitt on this side of the picture up there. That's our leader in the Senate. That's the Republican leader in the Senate. He just got back last weekend. He went down to the border, him and Matt Hall, if you've heard that name, the leader in the Republican side of the Senate. He went down to the border to Texas, and Texas was showing him the border, talking about their problems down there. And then he brought us back some statistics here of different things that are happening. But let's just play that recording. He's talking to a guy that's working on the border down there, and he does a pretty good job explaining it. It's only less than 3 minutes long. So.
Eric Nesbitt here in Eagle Pass, Texas. We're at Camp Charlie, which is the Texas State Guard, hosts about 700 other National Guardsmen from around the country, Florida, Louisiana, Missouri. We're with Senator King, who is our host here in Texas, showing us around the challenges they have in the border. I know Michigan's over 1,000 miles away from the border, but we're feeling the effects of Biden's border policies. I want you to share with folks back in Michigan what the challenges you're seeing and what do you want to share with the citizens of Michigan.
Well, the message is that Texas cannot do this alone. The federal government is actually working against us in most stages in securing our border. We're not the only border state. You're a southern border state. You are, because the fentanyl crisis, the leading cause of death, people 18 to 45, every bit of that is coming right across that Texas, right across that southern border. Most of it right across the Texas border. The illegal immigrants into your state that are filling up your schools, every 500 kids comes across. We love kids, but every 500 kids comes across, somebody's got to build a new elementary school. Somebody's got to staff and pay for that school. The additions to your health care costs, emergency medical room costs, everything you do. Every state is a border state. And now you're seeing the criminal alien gangs, Venezuelan gangs, and other gangs coagulated. Believe me, Texas is not a border state any less than you're a border state.
Well, that's something where Texas is spending $2 billion this year to help secure the border.
Actually, it's a little higher than that. It's actually more like $3 billion that we will spend Texas taxpayer dollars. We'd much rather put into schools and building roads and parks and doing all those good things. But we're putting them to provide law enforcement and military at the Texas border to try to catch human smugglers, try to catch drug traffickers. You cannot believe the number of young girls and women that are grabbed up at the border and snatched off and taken off and trafficked, sexually trafficked, all across this country instantly. It is tragic, and it happens every single day. You'll talk to a father, he'll come over and he'll have his wife or his young daughter with him, and he'll be pleading to our state police or to the military, they took my daughter, they took my daughter. It happens every day and in surprising numbers. So you are a border state the same as Texas is a border state.
Thanks for having us down here, showing us the effects, and it's something where other states are stepping up. Michigan needs to too. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
So he also mentioned that, so since Texas, got in so much trouble from Joe Biden and the Democrats in Washington, since they started taking care of it themselves, they figured 70% of the crossings happened in the state of Texas. They have now reversed that to 30% of the crossings seem to be in the state of Texas, and 70% are coming from other. So they've moved them to other states to bring them in, and they're still controlling it, and they're keeping that number down. But Eric gave us a list, and I'm not that old, but this is really fine print on here. This is the long-term combined totals from all unified commands from March 21 to April of 24 from the United States Border Protection. And these are numbers of people they say have come from, so we've got Afghanistan on here at 821 people, China at 8,941 people, El Salvador 235,885, Iran 209, Iraq 25, Jordan 87, Lebanon 324, Pakistan 94, Syria 319, Venezuela 481,712, Yemen, however you pronounce that, 36, which is really just stellar people from there, I'm sure. But we don't know anything about these people. We have nothing about them. We just know that they're here, and that's just a few of the, all the South America countries and stuff here. Just got thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So we're just letting these people come into our country, and they can say all they want about Donald Trump. Donald Trump had his flaws, but would any of these would Ukraine be happening right now if Donald Trump would have still been president? No. Would Afghanistan have happened? No. Would what's going on in Israel happen? No. Would what happened the other night happen? No. I mean, all this stuff would not have happened under Donald Trump, but yet they're going to tie him up in court now for the next 3 months. So, but okay, I just thought that was interesting stuff that we just got this information today, and we'd be glad to take questions. Yeah.
I just want to follow up a little bit on that. Our country, we're made from immigrants. How many are you from in the last 3 generations where somebody had an immigrant? My dad was an immigrant. We're a country of immigrants, and I support that. And I know a lot of people are looking for a better life. But when you have no control at the border, when you're not vetting anybody coming into our country, that's what creates the huge problems. And I just want to give you 8 of the biggest problems I find. And this is not just Texas, but all the border states, what's happening. They've more than doubled under Joe Biden. Deportations have been cut by more than half. 99% of the fentanyl seizures are at the southern border. 27,000 pounds of fentanyl is seized in 1 year. 100,000 drug overdose deaths in the U.S. is what that's caused. More people in Michigan now die from drug overdoses than car crashes. 70% of the deaths involve synthetic opiates such as fentanyl. And it's estimated that 60% of the children from Latin America trying to cross the border alone or with smugglers are caught by cartels and exploited sexually or used in the drug trade. This is not a small issue.
Question, raise your hand, and we'll get as many of them done as we can. We only got so much time. Please, Jack, or you. Keep your questions limited to a single question, and we can answer to the point with it, okay? And ask any question you want, have to do with this stuff, and I'm sure they'll give you the best answer that they can. So we're going to start with that. And so, if you got a question, raise your hand, and Myra will get to you there. And Bill, you're going to start this off. Folks, Letters, we already know who we are. Just answer your question. If you got a specific question, Bill, tell me who you're going to point to. Okay?
Well, actually, this is just for both of you, and maybe put your heads together. And we've got an administration that is flying. They're not just people coming across the border. This administration is flying people in on jets and just depositing him here. You've got a young woman was killed in Grand Rapids. This is directly affecting Michigan. How can we, or is there, what avenues do we have as citizens, you as lawmakers, what avenues do we have to find out who is in our state? How many are currently in our state? I can remember a few years ago there was some complaining going on about Wolverine and all that 6-7 years ago. That's nothing like this. I mean, we've got, but how can, is there even a way that we can go about to try to find any sort of number about how many are in here? Because I mean, between those that are crossing over and those that are coming on jets that we didn't even know about until here 3 or 4 weeks ago when it started to come to light. So.
Well, that's another thing he found out down so I think that's what they did. They were getting so much flack at the federal level from bringing them in by the busload because things were happening like DeSantis was shipping them to the other states and places where they shouldn't go. So they figured out a way to fly them. And Eric said that they are literally coming across the border and they're giving them a ticket and telling them where do you want to fly to and here's where we're flying you to. So it's a lot easier to do that one at a time. People can't track them down. They don't realize what's going on so much. But we wish we knew. We caught heck for blasting the governor when this, we talked about, what a terrible thing to talk about, an illegal individual killing somebody in our state that was here illegally. And we talked about it, and then it's just ridiculous. We are using this for political reasons. From Dana Nessel, Gretchen Whitmer, and I don't know if our Secretary of State, your favorite person, said it or not, but she probably did. But it's we just get beat up with it, but we don't care. We're doing it anyway. But we don't get the press coverage either. We don't get press coverage. The governor, they will cover her with everything she says, and they will not tell you the other side of the story. I wish we knew the answer, but the number one answer right now is that we've got an election going on today that those that don't know, and I know Bill's trying to watch it, down in there's two of them. Which one is the one we're watching closely? Westland. Westland, the current mayor was a state rep, and she left back in November, and so there's a special election down there, and I can't remember what the other town is, but they're very Democratic districts, but we had a really good candidate, a hard-working guy who was working down in Westland, and I know people from Lapeer County went down and knocked doors for him, and people from across the state were knocking doors for him. So it'd almost be a miracle, but wouldn't that be a great miracle to take the majority away from Gretchen Whitmer for these last year? That would be that would be a miracle, and I sent him some money. I know he got a lot of money from different county parties across the state. He actually raised as much money as the Democrat candidate did. One slap in the face that you didn't hear about is Whitmer did not endorse the Democratic candidate that won. The guy that she endorsed didn't win the primary. So that tells you something about that area. So that's part of the reason why we thought maybe that's a chance of being able to win that seat. So we're working at that. But we've got to win in November. We've got to take the House back. If they get 2 more years of this, I don't know. And the federals is just almost worse shape than we are, I think.
I read an article that our governor would like to bring in 650,000 people.
You got to grow the population in our state.
And I call them hidden taxes. One thing's a fee when it really covers a fee. When you get a driver's license, it was $15. It cost almost $15 to get it to you. That's a fee. Here's what she wants us to do, and still to this day, is raise our trash tipping fees for the fee that we all pay, so that if that needs cleaned up or how to monitor them. She wants to raise it 1,000%. That's a hidden tax. And what she first said was for low-income housing. And that often includes people that are here recently. And people, so many are not vetted. That's the whole problem. We're not vetting them. We don't know what we're getting. But we can tell you some of the people that have come that have not been vetted. so much sex trafficking, according to Eric Nesbitt, a Republican Senate Minority Leader, and also Jim Runstead. He's a senator. He's in Oakland County. He's been down there. Tony Guzmano. I'm not just watching TV. I'm talking to people that have been there, that I trust, that I know. And this is a huge problem. So now our governor's on the Free Press because she wants to go to a different community called Washington, D.C. And she says now that the state assistant shouldn't go to those in U.S. illegally. And she wants border reform. Well, that's new, you know. That's looking at the polls. The problem is that some of the people that come here didn't get here by claiming asylum. Now they're here, so now they're allowing them to claim asylum after they've come here without going through any process. It's just wrong on all accounts. And so you'll see her shift to wherever she needs to be for wherever she wants to get. We don't know the number, but when I became Secretary of State, the one thing I knew is 104.5%. It's not a good number to have registered to vote. So I went after all non-qualified voters, and I found 642,000 people that were dead, still on our rolls. 149,000 that have moved out of the state and declared they moved out of the state. 3,505 non-citizens were registered to vote. I took them off, but here's the problem. There's a lot of people that would like to give driver's licenses to people that have come here, and we're a global force. We have people from Bosch and all over the world. We want to keep that, but we want to make sure whoever gets a driver's license, which gives them many opportunities, including to vote. Did you know only the Secretary of State can tell whether the person is a citizen or if they're registered anyplace else? None of our clerks can. By the way, we have 1,525 local clerks. We're an unusual state. We have more than any that conduct the elections. They do a fabulous job. But right now, there's a big push to move it up to counties, move it away from our local clerks that we know, that we can check on, that are transparent, that we can vote in or out pretty easily. So I'm very concerned about not knowing who's who and who might get a driver's license. There'll be a big push pretty quick to get driver's licenses to folks.
Thank you for being here and spending time with us. We really appreciate it. My question has to do with if either of you have heard anything about the status of the idea of charging us for our own well water. Have you heard anything about that?
You know, I had a colleague of mine that is no longer in the state when I was in the House. That he was always a joke because me being a farmer, he always said, you know, you farmers, you use the sun and the rain for free. We should tax you for that. I said, you go ahead and be the guy that introduces that. Please do. See how far it gets you. There's always talk of that, and yeah, it's rumored, but I haven't seen any bill or anything that's been introduced that I know of.
So there's this notion that more money should be put in for those that are on municipal water to help to pay the bills for people that are low income. And anytime things go through government, you're usually going to get at least a third increase, right? I want free stuff, so please raise my taxes more than it will cost me if I do it myself. But there are a lot of people that really, their notion is they want government to do everything. So I went to the sponsor of the bill and I said, I don't want any of my communities to have anything to do with this. We'll take care of our own problems. And you know, Sterling Heights, which I don't have, I have a great deal of Macomb now, Shelby Township, and some ag townships. But the fact is they're going to pay $1 million more than they are now for people that are low income and indigent and need help to run it through government. Like, what sense does that make? So they always say, what would you like for your district? What would you like? I said, I want you to stay out of it. Leave us alone. We can take care of our own. And so I went to the sponsor, who is a very nice Democrat, and she's honest. But I disagree with a lot of her philosophies. But I can talk to her, which is good. I said, you know, my well went out. It was a 90-degree lead pipe underneath my driveway, and after it hit it for, 30 years, it blew it out right on the 90. the lead pipe. So I had to have my whole driveway removed. I had to put in new pipes, and I run one to my barn, and I run one to the back of my pond. It was over $7,000, right? I said, I'll take care of my own $7,000, and so will the rest of the people in my district, because they want us to pay. Her concept is, and she's negotiating for, and I only know because I sit on the committee, she's negotiating so that we all pay, so that when somebody needs help, they can come help us. That's coming up, so you are right.
I'm Prudence Resch from Elmont. My question is, and it goes back a year ago to a vote that I know you had pointed out the similarities between you and Senator Daley, but on this particular vote, you did not vote the same, and I'd like to know the reasoning behind it. The vote was Bill 4 in 2023. 3 senators crossed the Republicans still had control of the Senate. 3 senators crossed party lines and voted with the Democrats, and I believe, Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were one of them. The vote, it was about civil rights, which we already had civil rights laws in the state of Michigan. It was to strengthen it for the LGBTQ community, but it also it had no provisions. It had provisions for or sexual orientation, but no provisions. Yes, no provisions for religious orientation. So therefore, I believe, if I understood the law correctly, and please correct me if I'm not, you could be criminally prosecuted for misgendering intentionally, which who decides intentionally was where I got into this confusion. So I would like Senator Daley to tell us why he voted against it, and Senator Johnson to tell us why she voted for it.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. The Elliott Larson bill protects everybody. That included the LGBTQ community, religious community, by your gender, by everything. So the Democrats threw up an amendment that would specifically put that in there. I did have an amendment and did try to get the religious part also put in it and could not, but it changed no rules. It changed no laws. They were already there due to the Supreme Court decision to make it so. And it was sort of a gotcha bill by the Democrats because it's hard to explain. And so I appreciate you asking the question. But it changed nothing on how it works because of a Supreme Court decision.
It was just a moral issue for me. I couldn't vote for the bill, so it was pretty simple for me. I just wouldn't support that type of changes. But she's right. It really doesn't do anything, which is a lot of the bills that are happening now are happening. The gun bills and stuff, they really don't do a whole lot. They do a little bit, but not as bad as what they wanted them to do.
Thank you.
Hi, I got a whole bunch of questions, but I'll get you one other thing. This blocking roads. I watched in this latest one that was going for 3 hours. They stood in 2 lines, one on each side of them, looking at each other. I watched Texas. Texas, they blocked the road. They run a truck right around. They put a trailer 90 degrees on the road. They rammed their trailer right off of there. The police moved right in them. In about 15 or 20 minutes, when they got the police there, those people were gone. We need the state to step up when you have people doing this, not stand there for 3 hours looking at them and trying to sweet talk them. You move in on people like that, they're illegal. Federal will only take this talking about addressing it. They'll only address federal roads. So state roads, state bridges, that's got to be a state issue to stand up to these people now, not wait 3 hours to discuss the matter. What if somebody's sitting in there and has a heart attack, or they're trying to get an ambulance and they're stuck in that 5-mile-long line of cars? Ambulance can't even get out of the line, let alone get to a hospital, let alone any other issues going on. People missing work, people missing plane flights. This has got to stop.
Do you have that wasn't really a question, but do you have an exact example in Michigan where that happened?
What can you do, what can you do about that?
No,
I
but
need-
where,
I
do
need
you have
to-
an example of where that happened in Michigan? I know it happens in New York,
No, it
happens in
didn't
California.
happen in Michigan.
Okay,
Are we going to wait till it happens in Michigan before we pass? There's other states that are passing laws now to address these problems. They don't wait till the problem hits them in the face. They see that this is happening in half a dozen other areas.
Dan, nothing we'd like to do better than that, but I guarantee you, we could not get a bill like that passed
I
right
don't
now in the
care.
legislature.
If, you know what, you're the Republican, you're the minority. Propose a bill. If Whittemer or her cohorts refuse to pass it, or she vetoes a bill, fine. You have an argument then. Try and pass the bill. Show the thing. You're not going to sit here and allow people to die on the road because these people think they have an issue, which, to start with, it is illegal to block the road. You need to...
I'm not saying I disagree with you. I agree with you 100%,
But, you know, the police have to be given the authority to move in and not sit there and sweet talk them for hours. It should end the discussion. They're in there, they're illegal. You wait till somebody's robbing a bank, you wait till to go in there and talk to them 4 hours later.
there are people that would like to do that. You know.
People's lives are at risk. Have the police move in and move these people out.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hi, Michael Pizzoli from Goodland Township. I have a question regarding the local control on wind, solar, and battery storage. The law specifically, the law the way it was passed, specifically says that there shouldn't be an unreasonable taking out of prime farmland for solar, wind, and battery storage. Does that have any teeth, or is that just a nicety?
Well, the point is I can give you an example. Up in the top of the thumb, there's a really big crop farmer up there, and we're talking right where the power lines go through this. He farms 4,000 acres, and he happens to own it all. And it's literally where the new power lines that went through to put the wind energy up. They had to get a infrastructure in for that. So it's right in the midst of that. So they love it. They want to lease every single bit of his property. They want to lease. He would get $4 million a year without doing a thing. Would never have to do anything to that property for 25 years. So number one, if it really lasts that long, it'll be a miracle, I think, because I don't know how they can come up with that kind of money for that long. But the bottom line is that as long as they can get people that want it, I think that's what the question you're asking me. So, or maybe I misunderstood.
Well, no. Sorry, sir. If a township, I sit on a planning commission, they're essentially taking our ability to zone away. If they come in and, let's say, consumers wants to consume prime farmland, it seems that it would be in violation of the law the way it's written. Could we try and say local zoning still takes precedence over the Public Service Commission?
As long as your ordinances take into effect what the state is requiring, you will. But I mean, that's really what they've done. We didn't mention the fact that there's a possibility to stop this local takeover too. That's with the how many of you have signed the petition that's out there to stop that? If you haven't signed it, or if there's anybody here that's got petitions? There's one on the table. Oh, there's some here on the table. So to take that back away, the local control back out of that legislation, so it'll be all given back to the locals again. And it's become very ugly because like the township, and you guys had some pretty good fights over in Goodland about it too. And I can tell you up in Juniata Township in Tuscola County over the wind, they literally recalled 4 of the township board members that had been there for really good township board members, a dairy farmer. They were good people, had done a lot of good things for them, and they passed the ordinances to allow the wind to come in up there, and then the people took them out to win the election, and then they come back and spent basically bankrupt the township trying to fight it, which had already been approved. The wind towers were not going to get denied. The wind towers went up anyway, and now the township was bankrupt, and they threw them out. So there's a lot of ugly stuff going on with this solar and wind, and it's turning, you guys know it from Goodland Township, it's turning neighbors against neighbors. It's like everything else, and it's, I don't know, I've never thought of myself as a conspiracy theorist, but it sure seems like The whole goal of this country and this world right now is to turn people against each other in every avenue we possibly can. Family members, COVID, all that stuff. It always everybody's so against everybody on everything. I don't know how we fix that. But I don't know if that really answered your question or not, but that's all we can really tell you at this point in time, I guess. So. Did you have anything you want to say?
I'm Mike Eckhart from Goodland Township, and I wonder if you know of anybody raising funds to send those people from Dearborn back to their original countries that are saying death to America, because I'd like to contribute. I would really like to contribute to that fund.
I don't know anybody. Do you know anybody? I mean, why don't you start one, Mike? I think you might be able to collect a pretty good chunk right out of here, probably.
I actually have a quick question. On the Axe My Tax petition that's going around, I do have a little concern about that. I'm all for, you know, kind of getting rid of the property taxes, but is that going to give the state more control over the local communities, since the communities will then have to get the majority of their funding from the state?
You know, and my personal opinion is I think it's a very dangerous thing to happen, because you can't remove the funding. I mean, there's nothing I like better to do than to get rid of property taxes. I've said that forever. If we could figure out a way to do it, to still fund the things that government should be funding, which is police, fire, you know, protection of people, those type of things. I don't think that, you know, I don't think property taxes should be building parks and running trails across places, but and fixing roads, those kind of things that we should be doing. But to just get rid of it without a plan to move forward, I think is a very dangerous situation. And I think, Myra, you're absolutely right. I think it gives more power to the state. And of course, that's a goal. That's another one of those goals, is to take it all away from the locals. They know better. I say they. I guess we're part of the problem, aren't we? And you know, and that reminds me of when I first got elected to the State House, the first thing, we were in a meeting, a Republican meeting, you know, just getting to know each other over there. There was 43 of us Republicans. We were in the minority, but when we were going around the room telling each other about something about ourselves, and I got up and I said to the guys, everybody here, you know, one thing you got to remember, you are now part of the problem. Whether you like it or not, you're part of the problem. Because once we get elected over there, we're part of the problem, and our job is to try to fix it. We've come a long way since then, but I think you're spot on. I think it's a dangerous thing to go that route without a really structured, laid out plan to replace that dollars to the locals.
And I agree with both of you. I think we see some of these things out of pure frustration. A lot of you here probably remember when sales tax was 4% in Michigan. And we agreed by a large margin, we voted to raise our sales tax up to 6 cents, but not on drugs that we might need from the pharmacy, not from the grocery store, and we lowered our property taxes on our homes. And then there's a cap. They cannot go up if you homestead it. If it's your primary residence, can't go up more than inflation. And if inflation goes up more than 5%, it can't go up more than 5%. And we did that because property taxes on a home that you have to live in my opinion, is a regressive tax. So is food. We charge you if you go to Mickey D's, but not if you go to Kroger's, right? Because you can get your food. It all makes so much sense. Because a lot of us that are getting older, our taxes were going up so high. I had them go up 35% one year because I've got acreage, and then I'm in northern Oakland County. And so it was a really good plan, but what we've seen now is more millages be added and be added. And sometimes they're by commercials, and sometimes they're by just a lot of money being very deceptive, that they get the votes. And in Oakland County, they always are trying to get us belong to the Regional Transit Authority. Well, my township, I don't have a school or a library. We're not looking for regional transport. So my township, the fire has its own millage, dedicated millage, but in Groveland Township, we're the lowest, I believe, in the county. We're 0.95, less than a mill. And we were providing transit for all our seniors and people that had served this country. and anyone that had a disability. Take them to the grocery store, take them to the doctor, take them to the hospital, whatever's necessary, not if you want to go to the bar, but all the necessary stuff. So Wayne County has come into Oakland County, and we're paying .95 now for regional transit. We have no more transit than we had a year ago, and now my township tax is double what it was to provide the same services. And I just think people are tired of seeing this is put on, that's put on. Next you'll see the museums in other counties that we need to pay for, and Lapeer has not been pulled into that, but what they want is regionalism. Bigger, they think, is better. The Walmart brand is not always better. And I took stacks. I used to own a print shop, and so I put some large dollar bills and stacked them up one time and said, this is what it would cost if I did it through my township. And this is what it's cost if I do it through the county. And this is what it costs if I do it through the state. And there's so many people that think that you're going to get a better deal. I can tell you that the average is you pay a third more, and then I call it friends and family. If somebody's doing the contracts through their friends and family, it'll be a lot more than that. Oakland County used to look at the best qualified, all the qualified bidders. We redid the pavement when I was a county commissioner at 1200 North Telegraph. And first of all, you would have to put in a request for proposal. You would have to show that you actually have enough people, you have the machines, and that you've not defaulted. You're a qualified bidder. We took the lowest bidder. Now it's a mathematical formula of all these different other things, and people are not getting what they're supposed to at the lowest qualified bid. There's so many different subjective and other objective parts to it. We're paying far more than what we should be paying. And that is what they're looking for. Kevin's right, move it. They think higher is better. I think my local officials are far more accountable to me than somebody like Jocelyn Benson, or even, our governor. Look at some of the stuff she does. We don't have the control to move them. But if you didn't like what your township supervisor's doing, you could get together and change that pretty easily. So we're losing control, we're losing oversight, we're losing transparency by moving it up the ladder, and it's costing us far more.
One more thing when it comes to property taxes. Hold on just a second. So, and Bill mentioned Proposal A, if you remember. I bet a lot of people in here have owned their property where they live since longer than '97, haven't they? I think it was 1997 when Prop A went into place, when the 6% sales tax went up. And I've been using that quite a bit lately because I would really like to figure out a way. We've got to, and I'll defend, trust me, I'm a farmer, I own property, I get the property taxes, and I wouldn't probably be able to own it today if I had to pay the taxes on that full assessed value. You wouldn't be able to pay for it. But we've created a hard situation for the next generations coming up. And why is it fair that because I've lived in my house since 1997, I pay 1/4 of what the taxes are of the person that's going to buy it after I get done with it? So what are we doing to our next generation? And now farmers, we've got it good. I'm not complaining, and I hate to even touch this thing because of that, because we can keep it capped if we keep it in agriculture. So it's good to keep it that way, to keep agriculture and support agriculture. So we've got a good deal there. But Proposal A did two things. Number one, it created a situation where going forward, it creates this level where some people it's not equal taxation by any means. And that's wrong, I think. And the other thing we did is we put a dollar amount on our kids' heads for school funding, which took it away from the locals, which means my wife, now she's retired, but a school teacher, she'd have a student that she's having problems with in school, and the parents are coming in like some parents will do and cause a lot of trouble, and then the administrator gets all concerned, the principal gets all concerned because you can't tick off the parents, or they'll take their kid and take them to another school, and the district's going to lose $10,000. That's a problem, and that's a big problem. And I have asked so many people just in the last couple of months, everybody I talk to, I say, think about it. We need to come up with a better way to do this. And I don't think it's axe to tax, though. But there's got to be a better way to do this, and it's going to take some time to do it, and I just don't know what the answer is. But sorry about that. Go ahead.
My name's Steve. I got a question about the elections. Every elected official has to take an oath for a good, faithful performance in their office, and they have to have a bond to give, surety for that. If we all filed a claim against the governor's bond for the maximum amount, she wouldn't be able to hold bond, or then she couldn't hold office. Is that correct?
Former Secretary of State might know the answer.
I don't know. I've never paid a bond. I've taken an oath.
You don't have a performance bond? You're covered by a blanket bond?
If you're like a treasurer would, or somebody that's handling money and stuff.
Well, anyone sworn into an office is supposed to have a bond.
I've never paid a bond, and I've had 5 different offices, including Secretary of State.
Was it a blanket bond covered by the state?
At the township level, you bond the treasurer and the supervisor.
Right.
Not at our level. The trustees, and the clerk, I think, as well, too. Anybody that has anything to do with the dollars.
Yeah, I think the governor has broken her constitutional oath, personally.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, and I would agree. There's no money that comes with running for governor for a bond. But the problem is, I've never seen such a good communication team she hired out of Washington, D.C. And I've never seen, and Kevin brought this up, I've always seen the media be more left-leaning than not. But now they're so left-leaning often that our story's not even getting out. The other side's not even getting out. Before they might have downplayed it, but now it simply doesn't get out. Did you know any of these things about Benson? And right now there's 104.5% of the eligible electorate registered to vote in Michigan. Don't you think the newspapers and Channel 2, 4, and 7, and 10, and 12 should all have that on? She's been sued at least 3 times to clean up the qualified voter file. She was found in violation, and she continues. And these are big problems. But I just want to say that there is some solutions. And sometimes it feels like there's not, and especially when we're sitting on the Senate floor and watch some of this stuff happen. But I worked with Candace Miller. She's from Macomb County. She was serving in Congress, and she had been Secretary of State. And one of the things that we need to do is, when we move to, say, Florida, we have to surrender our driver's license both electronically and physically. At that time, we should be surrendering our voter registration. They stay on for 2 federal elections by federal law. So you can never get a clean, qualified voter file. We just want the DMVs, we call them branch offices, to push 2 more buttons. Kevin Daley is giving up his Michigan driver's license, and he's getting a Florida one, and then 1 more elections. He's no longer registered in Michigan, he now is in Florida. Doesn't seem hard. Lisa McLean has a bill. I've been working on it now for 10 years. And if there's anything you can do to help her, it's H.R. 2556. H.R. 2556, it's in the 2023 and 24 year. This is one of the most important things we can do, is have a clean, qualified voter file. It is the foundation of our elections. And the other thing is, I've been trying to find somebody that will help fund this. We have so many of you that care enough that will give up your vacation time and work hard and do what you can. But we need a very clean ballot proposal, because they lied on the last one. That was a proposal 2. They had all these commercials and mailers and said, if you vote for this, it'll enshrine voter ID into our Constitution, which, by the way, 80% of the people support, even 58% of Democrats. But it was 5,800 words, and way down it said, or none at all. No photo ID, none. And when I went to a Republican event, started talking about it, they were clapping for it. I thought, we are in trouble. And really, the Republicans didn't come up with money to make sure that people knew the truth. But isn't that what our media is supposed to do? Aren't they supposed to be fair? Aren't they supposed to say, this is what they're saying, but this is what it really is, now you decide? And it's a great disappointment for me to see that. And you are very powerful. We're only one of 5 states that decide on federal elections. The other 45, it's done today, who's going to get voted in. We're one of the biggest prizes in this nation. And it's you that be the only people that can probably break through, that come together, that work together, that have a passion. So don't give up. There's ways that we can do this. And this ballot proposal that I'm hoping I can get citizens to do, and I'm still looking for somebody to fund it, and I haven't stopped yet. I've asked 3 big donors, but I have a 4th one. You know, when you go to your library, you have to give your license or state ID to get a book. For fishing license, you have to have a state ID or a driver's license. They lied on that. We just need, because we know 58% of Democrats, 100% of Republicans, and the vast majority of independents, they all want photo ID. All we need is a ballot proposal. We can get the votes. I've never seen 80% of the people agree with anything. And that gives me hope if we can get something like that. And then, of course, elect Republicans.
Just real quick on the bonding issue, we don't have to, as elected officials, we aren't bonded right now. So I don't think any state official is bonded. But the locals are bonded through, well, the bonded officers at the township level are bonded through their insurance policies. That's how we did it when I was in the township. So. In those positions that are, yes, that are in those positions that need it, yeah.
Is that bond payable to the people or payable to corporations and municipalities? Because the injury would come to the people, right? If they do something wrong, it would hurt the people. The people don't get any compensation, but is it paid to the corporation they work for?
I think it's, well, yeah, well, I think that those particular bonds are to protect the public from a person stealing money from the municipality. So you're protecting the public. I think that's the reason for them at the local level.
So if they don't have a bond that protects the people, are they personally liable for not being honest and paying for service to the people?
That would be an
independent bond or something.
Yeah, I would think that'd be more of a civil lawsuit to go that route. Yeah. But I don't think that bond would protect you from a civil lawsuit.
No, but it would be a payment for any bad performance on there, unfaithful performance that they take an oath to like bringing windmills and solar panels in here. That's not good for anybody, right? If it's not good for one.
There are people that disagree with us, but I don't think.
Well, I'm just saying, if it's not good for one.
And we're probably all very, very big. I mean, when it comes to wind and solar, I'm a very strong personal property rights guy too. So I just think that that needs to be made by somebody other than the state of Michigan.
I don't see where the state can come in and force compliance. That's involuntary servitude. That violates the Constitution. They took them over.
Should be.
No, we agree. They can't answer that question. We don't know. Hold on, I got one back here. John, I'm going to have time for 2 more questions after John. Good question.
And I just wanted to mention that we have a millage that's coming up here in our county. We have 2 ambulance services, and one of them we have a millage for, and they want a 33% raise for that millage. So we have a new one coming up, you guys. It's I want everybody to be aware of it. I'm sorry, this really isn't a question. I just had an opportunity to get a microphone in my hand and complain about a millage coming up that makes no sense. So we have, and we checked the surrounding counties, and Oakland County doesn't have any millages for any ambulance services, and all the surrounding counties do not. So that's all I have. Sorry.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here. How do we get more information, like on these bills that you mentioned, H.R. 2556? When you initially got voted in, I called your office maybe 4 months and asked for like a newsletter or something. And I know, Kevin Daley, you've sent out a newsletter. I still get yours. But you are now my senator. And I went online today to your website and to make sure that I, was in your system. Yes, you are subscribed, but I've never received anything from you. So, why?
Yeah, I'll get your address later because we do send stuff out. I'm not sure why not. I apologize. Yeah, these are bills that would normally be printed because it's a federal law, not a state law. So you'd be more apt. I just went to Candace Miller as the Secretary of State because she knew the problems and said, I need your help. I really need your help. And she had it drawn up. My staff found it. We took it to Lisa McLean, Congresswoman Lisa McLean. She said she'd work on it. It's unfortunate that she thinks that some people will look at it as a partisan issue, rather than, you know, it's nonpartisan to clean up the QVF. But I'll talk to you, get your address, and see what's going on, because we do send them out, and I do apologize for that.
Just in defense of, if you're still getting them from me, that's a mess up in our system in the state. So yeah, okay.
Well, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
Like the Goshen, is that going to happen, that Chinese battery company?
We hope not. We voted against it. I personally don't believe in corporate welfare and have never. You know, you look at the system that we have in Michigan, we get an F. We're failing. We're failing our kids. 2/3 of our kids can't read or do math proficiently in the state. Companies are leaving, so we're having to incentivize rather than teaching our kids. I think it's just wrong, right from the core. All the local officials got recalled, got voted out, they're gone. The governor's still pushing for it very hard. And before she ran, she said she did not believe in dark money. As Secretary of State, I'd made an administrative rule, which I very quickly got run over by both sides of the aisle, to not be able to have dark money with. You need to tell people, who are you getting money from? We all deserve to know that before we vote. The governor was just against dark money. She used to rail on other people. She has taken over $20 million in dark money, $20 million. We know that one of her contributors gave her $857,000, another one $400,000. You can't tell me that doesn't come with some kind of quid pro quo. Otherwise, they would put their name on it. Otherwise, we would know who it is. And so when all this money's been given out, it makes you wonder. And I don't think it's a good system that we have. And she fights any kind of transparency. And one of the other things that we said is, we should know if your spouse, what they're involved with too. Because when you're married, you get benefit from that. And she said, oh no, that hurts women's rights. So we have a governor that says one thing, does another often. And I've worked with 5 governors. I've never found one for me that's quite this bad.
You got my vote. Yes, Mike Eckhart, Goodland Township. I have 6 grandchildren that are homeschooled, and I understand that Whitmer is trying to register homeschooling. She's trying to have people come into the house where the homeschooling is taking place to verify that it meets certain state criteria. Do you know anything about that? Is that legitimate? Because I've read a lot about it.
There's no doubt that the governor and her team, they do want a bill to get passed to be able to get the names and addresses of those that are being homeschooled. My daughter's 24. She's got bad health. In part, she was homeschooled. I tried every kind of schooling, and that should be my right as a parent and your right as a parent, and not government's. And, you know, the big push is for unions. And if I sit on education, and my bachelor's degree is K through 9 to be a teacher, and the Detroit superintendent was testifying to us on a different bill, and I was just curious, what is your chronic absentee or truant, as we used to call it, rate? 60%, 60. And you want to come into people's homes that are homeschooling? And by the way, homeschoolers rank 84% better on testing when they go to college. I mean, let parents do what parents do best. And so, of course, the Republicans, none of us support that. That bill has not been passed. And maybe it's good she's got her eyes set on D.C. because it will make her moderate a little bit. But if they get a chance, they will do that.
Now, is she doing that because they're losing so much money from the homeschoolers that are not being put back into the school system?
Well, that's not the main reason she's doing it. She wants to control it. She doesn't like homeschoolers because the money's still there. She's actually saving money by having people homeschool because there's no money being spent on those kids.
Yeah, but she doesn't get matching money from the homeschoolers. if
She's
they were
doing
in
that because they
school.
want to control people. That's what I believe. They want to control everybody. They don't want somebody to be out there. They tried to turn it around and make it look like because how many kids get hurt by a parent in a public school setting? Way more than the homeschool kids do. But that's what they used one case where some happened with a homeschool kid and that was a case where I think it was a foster parent, if I remember right, who was raking the system and making money off these kids, and then they injured one of the kids, and so they're trying to use that as an excuse to come back and do it. And we're doing all we can not to let that happen. That's all I can tell you at this point in time. My biggest concern before we wrap up here is that if we are fortunate enough, or I should say when we win the House back in November, watch out for those next 4 or 5 weeks after that. Because Whitmer and the House and the Senate, they won't have to worry about an election again, and they will have what they call lame duck, and things like this could get done at the last minute. And then Whitmer's got 2 more years as governor, unless she goes to Washington, which God forbid it. And so she's got 2 more years to stop us from changing it. So all these bills that have been passed this year, as long as she's the governor, she can stop them from being passed because we can change them if we can. But the Senate's going to be a little difficult because they've got control of the Senate for 2 more years. So we've got another 2.5 years in front of us that are going to be tough. But we need to make sure we stop this unilateral takeover because that's the type of thing that will happen in the fall if they can get it done. If it doesn't happen, so.
Final question, except for mine. And I control that. Just a quick one that I haven't
There's
heard
the guy
of.
we need for governor right there.
Yeah. My name's Tim Lintz, by the way. My question is, there's a lot of talk about Chinese people buying land in this country. And I really think we ought to stop that some ways. Michigan got anything in the works right now to stop that from happening?
We've done the investigating in Michigan. There's very little foreign-owned land in Michigan. Very, very little. I mean, I don't even know if there's any Chinese-owned land in Michigan. We did the work. It was, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it seems like it was less than 0.2% of the land in Michigan is foreign-owned. And the largest percentage of that percentage is Canadian-owned. And so that hasn't been a problem in Michigan yet. I literally wanted to introduce a piece of legislation that said you could not, from foreign countries, could not own land in Michigan. And we caught a lot of kickback from the agriculture communities because of the involvement in agriculture all over the country and stuff. They were concerned about what that could do to them in trading and shipping products to other countries and stuff, how that might come back and haunt them. So because there's such a small amount of it actually happening, and I'm just talking about Michigan. Other states, I can't talk about them. I know there's problems, and I don't disagree with you. I don't think China should own a lick of land in this country. But then I don't know what difference it makes. If Bill Gates is buying it up, what difference does it make? Yeah. So, they can be bought up by Americans, and China already owns the meat market, the pork industry in our state. They bought those processing companies. So it's scary stuff, but it is, I can just tell you seriously, it's not a problem at this time, but we're watching it close in Michigan. So.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's give them a hand. Good job. Good job.